And I slept in an abandoned car for a while. I slept on the beach for a while. I started to learn that, hey, if you made friends with brokers, they would give you the code to the lock boxes to buildings. And you could sneak in at night and sleep in these newly developed buildings before they're completely finished. Maybe they didn't have power. And then be out by the morning and live an okay life. I learned that hanging out at the community college, you could get free food because they served food and all kinds of special events there. So I learned to get by, and I managed to get myself a mentor. And I fell into the rave scene, the electronic music scene that was going on in the 1990s. And I remember thinking to myself, man, this is amazing. But all these motherfuckers are broke. They're all broke. They're all doing drugs. They're having a good time. I didn't drink. I didn't do drugs. But I started looking and I was like, dude, you know who's making the money at these things? It's the drug dealers. Mm-hmm. The people that are selling the ecstasy. Now, I was at the right place at the right time. During this time, the quality of ecstasy had dramatically declined. It was mostly made in the UK and Amsterdam, particularly. And they had stopped the flow of it to the United States. And people here, for whatever reason, didn't know how to produce it. The drug dealers had very low supply, but the demand was increasing. And I thought, fantastic. Look at these guys. They got the Ferrari. They got the pretty girl. They're like the hit of the party. And they're the rich. They got all kinds of money. Like, I'll just be one of these guys. That's what I'll do. I'll just become a drug dealer. And then it hit me that I was really fucking bad at crime. I went back through all of the stuff from my adolescent criminal endeavors. And I thought, dude, if you ever fucking do that, you're just going to end up in jail. Terrible idea, Shane. At least I had the self-reflection to know that I was bad at crime. So I decided, you know what? Let me come up with a legal version of this. I didn't know it was impossible. I didn't know no one had ever done it before. I just thought, if I could come up with a legal version of ecstasy using herbs and natural ingredients and get that out into the world, I could create an empire. This could be amazing. And I did it. I managed to get myself a girlfriend, which I don't know how I did, being broke as I was. And her dad had some stuffy job. He was like an accountant or superintendent of some school district or something. So he would leave early in the morning. And as he left out the back door of this big, out the front door of this big house, I would enter in through the back door and start cooking up prototypes in her kitchen every day, cooking them up and giving it to people in the neighborhood, the teenagers in the neighborhood, until one day we got a formula that worked. And now it brought
What do you mean by worked, by the way?
It was effective. People were having a really good time on it, and they felt that it did what it claimed to do, which was to replicate the physical effects of ecstasy.
And how did you know what ingredients to put in? Like, how did you know how to even initiate the trial and error process for it?
I didn't. That's the most common question. But here's the thing. I had a grade school education. I wouldn't even be able to do, in those days especially, like long division. That's how advanced I was. But what I did have was a degree in getting my ass kicked and standing up again, a degree in not being super fragile, not being a snowflake, of not taking no for an answer, of constantly coming back until I got whatever the fuck I wanted. And that's what I did. And I got a working prototype, and I remember telling myself, this is it. Let's fucking go, sink or swim. And I went to one of the biggest clubs at the time, 10,000 plus people, underground warehouse, walked straight up to the biggest drug dealer there. Now, this guy was scary. Now,
this is what, downtown LA?
This was in downtown LA. Yeah. Now, if you have tattoos on your face right now, you are a TikTok star. They give you a platinum record. They call you Post Malone. In the 1980s and 1990s, if you had tattoos on your face, it was a different story. People would walk the other side of the street if you came. People would look away from you. This man had tattoos on his neck and his face. He had the 3 little dot things, I think meant he killed somebody in prison. And I remember walking up to him. He had bodyguards. He had beautiful girls around him, all kinds of money. And he goes, look, I'm out of fucking supply. There's no ecstasy going around. And I said, oh, no, I don't. No, me, drugs. No, I don't want drugs. He said, what the fuck? Are you a cop? And starts patting me, and the bodyguards all stand up. It was like a movie. And I was like, okay, I'm probably going to die now. That's fine. But it's a good time to talk to this guy. So I said, look, I got this stuff. And remember, back in those days, I didn't have money to buy the machine that made the capsules. So these were pills that I rolled by hand and then dried in my girlfriend's oven and then put in little baggies to make them look like drugs, to make them look like pills. And I had filled the backpack with him. I handed him a baggie and I said, hey, it's better than ecstasy. And he goes, what the fuck is this shit? I'm going to fucking kill you. And I said, no, he's like, it's herbal ecstasy. I just made it up in that moment. And he looks at me and he doesn't know what to make of it. And I figured in that moment that this would be a really good time to run away as fast as I could. But my feet were glued to the ground. And I remembered all those beatings in the schoolyard. I remembered all the times people made fun of me for not speaking English. And I remembered all that it took to get me to that moment in front of this guy. And I thought to myself, he's going to work for me. And I looked at him and I said, I think it's a good idea for you to sell this. You're going to go to jail. You're going to get into trouble. It's completely legal. And in that moment, it was absolute synchronicity. Two people walked up to him with money in their hands. They're having a discussion. Those people aren't happy that he doesn't have the drugs. He's unhappy that he can't take their money. And he motions over to me. I hand him the baggie. He grabs the entire backpack and he goes, come back in 2 hours. You better not be fucking with me. He had sold every single unit and people were loving it. And it went from one guy to 10,000 guys to 100,000 guys. A lot of these guys became legitimized. They bought territories from me. They bought retail franchises, and a lot of them legitimized their business. And it wasn't long before we were selling more herbal ecstasy than illicit ecstasy in the streets. Larry Flint became one of our big distributors, selling into all the sex and adult stores around the world. We were in every bookstore. Urban Outfitters carried us. GNC, which is General Nutrition Center here in the States. All the big supermarkets, 7-Eleven. We were everywhere.
Now, did they come to you, or did you reach out to them after it was making its way through the drug warehouse scene?
It caught on like wildfire. And I was doing interviews and news and I mean, we were it. I had my 15 minutes of fame. I mean, I'd walk into a restaurant, I'd walk into a store, people would know who I am. And I remembered I had a collection of exotic cars, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, all that. And I would sleep like 2 hours. At this point, I had a factory. We had set everything up. I'd sleep on the factory floor for like 2 hours and then get in my car, crash for like half an hour, and then walk into the office. And I remember drooling on the passenger seat of my brand new Lamborghini. Bad look, because I didn't sleep enough. And I just was like, okay, just if I close my eyes for 30 minutes, I can get back to work. Walked into my office. My secretary at the time was pale-faced like a ghost. Everybody was standing around, jaws dropped. The news broke that we had exceeded $1 billion in revenue. Pre-internet, Ashton, pre-social media, pre-Facebook, pre-cell phones,
So no Kardashian endorsements even.
No Kardashian endorsements, yeah. And I remember having a panicked moment thinking, holy fuck, I don't know how much $1 billion is. Is it 100 million? Is it 50 million? Like, I don't know. And then the second thought that occurred to me was that maybe I should at this point get an accountant. And I learned a very important lesson, which I think will be really good for your viewers. And that's that when you're interviewing accountants, you should know that accountants are not the people that count the cash piled up in your office in duffel bags. That is not what accountants do. I had to learn that the hard way.
Remember a phone number for that.
They didn't teach me that. They didn't teach me that at school. And from there, I went on to inventing all the technology for digital vaporization, what now is the vape, and what you see all derived from technology that I built. That company went public. I sold that company, exited in 2006. And then I moved on to creating one of the best brain supplements on the market called ELECTile Focus Plus. And I learned that there was this little guy named Jeff Bezos. Everyone said he was a Silicon Valley nerd. And you could get a hold of Jeff Bezos in those days. He'd answer his phone. You can get him on email. And we heard through the grapevine that Jeff was opening up the Amazon platform to third-party sellers. Like, you and me, you could sell anything you want on there. I was like, dope. Let me sell ELECTile. $120 a unit. It was expensive in those days. And I thought, man, let me sell this on Amazon. So I listed it on there, went to sleep, woke up the next morning, and we had thousands of orders at $120 a piece, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I said, holy shit. Let me learn a little bit about this Jeff Bezos character.